So hi, hello, and welcome again. And in today's video, I'd like to talk about viruses, okay? And what are they? What are they made of? What do they do? How do they reproduce? Okay, so these are going to be the questions that I answer. And what I've got here already, I've got some paper cutouts, and I'd like to show you a little bit of how a virus is able to make copies of itself. So what I have over here is a cell. Now that's a body cell. You know, it's one of the many trillion cells that we have in our body, and this is a virus. And I think the virus actually is still drawn a little bit too big. It's even much smaller than the cell, but yeah, I had to make it a little bit bigger because otherwise you won't be able to see anything, and I cannot show you what I want to show you. So what I have is over here. This is a virus, and this virus, maybe we've inhaled it or we've eaten some bad food, or whatever way. There are many ways how viruses can be passed on from person to person. And what a virus does is the following. The virus now goes into a body cell. Okay, it invades a body cell, and what it does in there, it hijacks the cell, and it will make copies of itself inside the cell. So a virus is not able to divide like a cell, or it's not able to make copies on its own, but it needs a so-called a host cell. So this cell here, this body cell, hosts the virus. And inside this host cell, the virus will now start to make copies. And basically, after some time, more and more viruses will appear inside this host cell. And there are many copies I've now made. I don't know how many of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But in reality, probably hundreds and hundreds of copies are made. And then what happens next is that the cell will then release those viruses. The viruses then will go out of the cell. Okay, they will go out of the cell, and this cell then dies. In many cases, the cell will then die, and those viruses can now spread again to invade. I'm going to move everything over here, okay, to invade the next cell. Okay, so we've got another cell, yeah, and then the whole thing repeats, and the virus will go into the cell again, and then you've got again many copies, and then you've got more viruses. Okay, so you can see that within a very short time, a few viruses are able to make many copies, and then of course this cell will also die. And what happens then? Well, the immune system of our body will start to become active. The immune system will say, oh my gosh, there are so many viruses around, we have to start killing those viruses. So the immune system will start killing those viruses, but those viruses, they continue to reproduce. Okay, they will go into the next cell, okay, and reproduce. So it's a race. Who is faster? Are the viruses faster, or is the immune system faster? Okay, when we get a vaccination, for example, then our immune system is prepared and has a head start, and then it already knows the virus because of the vaccination, and then it's able to fight off the viruses much faster. Okay, so this is basically how a virus reproduces. Yeah, and those viruses that are spread around here, depending on the virus, they can spread in a variety of different ways. For example, over sneezing, yeah, or over saliva, or exhaling. Sometimes viruses also spread over food. Okay, so yeah, there are certain viruses that are on food, certain forms of hepatitis, for example. Other viruses are spread directly over the blood. So there are many different possibilities because there are also many different viruses around. But there are a few things that all viruses, regardless of how they look like and what they do, have in common. And that's going to be the next part that I'd like to talk about, because I'd like to make a drawing and a label of a virus. So I'm going to look at one of those viruses here. I'm going to make a larger drawing. Now, here we have got a little sheet of paper, and what I do is the following. I start off on the outside, and some viruses, what they have is on the outside they have a membrane. Not all of them, okay, but it could be a membrane, a little bit like cells also have a membrane. Okay, so this here on the outside could be a membrane. So I'm going to simply put the label directly over here. And I'm going to change color. Then on the inside, and I'm going to draw it like this. This here is made of protein, and is known as the capsid of the virus. So it's a protein capsid. But viruses also need genetic information. And genetic information, this carries the instructions for the cell, essentially, here it is, on how to make copies. How should the viruses look like? This information must be written somewhere, and this is written on the genetic information, and I'm drawing this genetic information in here, okay? This could be either DNA or RNA. So I have over here the genetic material. This could be DNA or RNA. And the important thing is that viruses have a protein capsid which surrounds some genetic material. These two things are really the important ones. And many viruses, not all of them, also have a membrane around them. But I think that those two are really the most important ones here. So very important as a summary now. I'd like to talk a little bit about some important key points to remember about viruses. Okay, they need a host cell to reproduce. Let me put the labels back here. Okay, just looks nicer with all of the labels, and maybe some of you are still copying the material into your notebooks. So points to remember: viruses, they need to invade a host cell to reproduce. So host cell can be pretty much any of the body cells that we have. Different viruses prefer different cell types, but in any case, the virus that the cell that allows the virus to reproduce is called the host cell. Viruses are therefore not alive. They are not alive because they cannot reproduce on their own. They need a living cell. So those viruses here, they cannot divide. They need to go into a living cell and then they can reproduce inside. They're not independent. They depend on a cell, and they are made of genetic material. That's this thing over here, surrounded by protein capsid. So this is here. And some of them, as I mentioned, they have a membrane as well. Okay, so viruses are non-living particles, and if you want to fight off viruses, then of course there are certain medications that you can use. It depends from virus to virus which medication to use, and of course the human immune system is able to also fight it off by producing so-called antibodies. That's going to be a different topic. What I'd like to do now is I'd like to show you a couple of pictures under the microscope, okay, of different viruses. Okay, so what you see over here, let me put everything again away. So what you see over here is those little round circles. These are the viruses here, and this seems to be a host cell. You see the size difference. They're quite small. There are many hundreds of them that come out of the host cell here. This might be another cell. Okay, so you see that the cell is actually much larger than the individual virus particles. It actually is labeled. It's called the West Nile virus. This one over here. Now the others, I don't know what they are. Okay, but it's a slightly larger picture here. You see also over here the virus particles, and this one over here is is the coronavirus, or it is one of the coronaviruses because there are many of them as well. And they have these are viruses that actually do have a membrane around them. And you see that there are even some things in the membrane on the outside as well. And corona means crown because it looks like a crown. So you've got some coronaviruses here. Now, of course, you would like to see some viruses directly under my microscope, but I have to disappoint you. The problem is that my microscope and any light microscope are not able to show viruses because they are too small. You need special so-called electron microscopes. And those electron microscopes, give you pictures like this. But normal light microscopes like I have and like many schools have and universities have, they're not able to show viruses because they're way too small. So I'm unfortunately not able to show you a live image of a virus. And of course, universities, many of them, they have electron microscopes which allow you to give you pictures like this here. But if you would like to know how big a virus actually is I made a separate video where I compare the size of a virus to the size of a fly's leg. It's and then you're able to see that it's really small. Okay, so I think I'm going to leave it at that today again. And this was a short introduction into viruses. Yeah, and I wish you. Let me put this back again here. Yeah. I wish you all the best, and see you around in the next video. Bye bye.